Good morning. It is Wednesday, October 6th. We're starting a new book, Etgar Keret's The 7 Good Years, and we'll get to that in a minute. But oh, here comes Evie. Let's see, you can't see them. No, but they can see us now? You can, yes, they can. Oh, I thought that was. Good morning. Morning. Hi. We have a new system, which I think might be good. We'll start in the room, starting with Izzy, and just say your name as we go around, and let me see if I can get this into gallery. Oh, wait, I have an idea.
Yeah, it should be on your screen.
No, that's something else. It's a new thing. Oh, what I can do is unpin this.
I can read it.
Okay, all right.
Here we go.
Izzy.
Yes,
What's your name?
Izzy Man.
Izzy Man.
I'm Ellen Besson.
So we're also going to practice our outside voices as loud as you can go.
Like you?
Yes. Channel your inner Vanessa. I used to tell all the B'nai Mitzvah students that. Channel your inner Mrs. Ehrlich.
Mary Schuster.
Elaine Greenberg.
Beth Weiss.
Joyce Wellick. Wait.
Joyce Brodsky.
Barbara Weiss. No, I know.
Okay. Could you hear them in the room?
Yep. I think so. Oh, a lot of new people.
Yeah. All right. So we have, I don't know how you guys see it. So I'll call out your name and you can raise your hand. Lynn Sallet. There you go. Janice Levinson. Beverly Newsome. Alice Cohn. And Evie Horwich. Can't quite. There we go. Oh, and Sue Roberts. Yay. Oh, and Sandy Kaminsky. Fantastic. Okay. So, it's great to see everybody. And
Evie just disappeared.
who?
Evie. No, she
She'll
goes.
be all right. Don't worry. All right, you do discussion. I'll worry about that. Okay. So I hope everyone had a Chag Sameach. I thought services were fantastic. It's great to see everybody. We had some beautiful days. I will say up front, I have to leave at 10:59. Everything is fine, but I'm running Jonathan to the University of Chicago, and I don't need to tell anyone in this room or on Zoom that the traffic is horrendous. I'd rather be coming to Wisconsin to see Alice. Anyway, we'll make some decisions about this book, but let's start. And I want to tell you a little bit about Etgar Keret. He is, and I'll show you, I think he's very handsome, although I guess I've been reading him low these many years, and he's aging now.
Oh, really?
He's read something.
How surprising.
I know. So, wait, when he was young,
Yes.
and now he's, there he is young again. And
We see the
let's see where he is.
sideburns.
Still fairly good
Yeah,
looking.
he is still fairly good looking. I agree. And he is really, I think, a wonderful author. Now, of course, this is being translated, so we're not reading it in the original Hebrew. And we thank his translators, which I think I saw he had more than one. And he also has some great, and if I can find them, he had some correspondence with Sayad Kashua. And if you're familiar with him, he's an Arab journalist. He lived in Israel. He sent his kids to Israeli schools. And he did a stint at U of I. And they're both fabulous writers. I forget that we did a book of his in book group, and I can't remember the name, but
I think, no, actually, I've read the whole thing. There is a one or two line, there's a reference to him.
Yeah.
There's something in there. I just remember this when
Yeah.
you said it.
Sayed Kashua is very, very funny and very, very good. And the article that I love of his is he sent his kids to Israeli schools. And they came home and they're, practicing the violin. And what does his kid have to practice? A tikva. and he says, why are you playing that music? We have beautiful Arab music. And he plays, and the wife goes, well, show her the Arab music. And, she plays the Arab music. And then finally, he goes, Dad, I got to practice Hatikva. And they go back upstairs. So, yeah.
You said he lived in Israel. Where does he live now?
I don't know if he went back. He lived in Champaign. I haven't kept tabs on him. I don't know if he went back. And look, it would be a very hard time. Although, again, it's not an apartheid state. It's not genocide. And he took advantage of living in Israel and going to Israeli schools, as any, Arab Israeli can do, when you live in Israel. Anyway, if you missed Tal Schneider last night, by the end of today, I should have a recording, and
thank you.
she was fantastic. She was fantastic. And again, I'll note no one here will be in shock that we had a little sound difficulty at the beginning, but we fixed it. Yes.
Last night I saw the movie at L'Chaim called Everything Kosher movie.
Yes,
It
louder.
was Everything Kosher movie, and I really would recommend it. Rabbi Ike was in it.
Everything's
Because,
right.
It was the Wayfarer on Saturday.
Yes.
And last night I thought it was incredible.
Right.
And he's doing new research on finding new, what he called halfway houses for Holocaust victims.
Yeah.
And he's going all through Germany and doing that and doing a documentary on that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So let me tell you a little bit about Etgar Keret. He was born in 1967, so he's about, a little over 10 years younger than me. And he's known for his short stories, graphic novels, and script writing for film and television. He was born in Ramat Gan, which is outside Tel Aviv, and he's the third child to parents who survived the Holocaust, which is something important you should know because it affects his writing. Both of his parents are from Poland. He studied, blah, blah, blah. And in Wikipedia, it has all of his other, his books and everything. He's married to Shira Geffen, which does not mean anything to anyone here, perhaps, but Shira Geffen's father is Yonatan Geffen, who is one of the biggest producers in Israel. It would be like saying, her father is Bill Gates or Mark, but he's an entertainer. What's the Jewish guy?
Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg, right. Good job, people, good job. So Geffen is a magical name, and they have, plenty of money. And the two of them made a movie together, Jellyfish, which was very cute and beautiful. And I don't know, I think we may have seen it somewhere. I know I've seen it. It's a lovely film. So Etgar Keret, I would say he is lefty. And after listening to Tal Schneider, it's hard to believe we're going into the second year of a war. So I'll see if I can find, before we finish this up, some of his if he has anything recent that he's written on the war or what's happening. And, it's hard to put into words. And, very quickly, one of the things that Tal said last night, I've been to Israel, I saw a lot of this, but and some of this may come out in Etgar Keret's writing. When people are, say they're dead in Gaza, the Rabbanut, and all religion is run through this Orthodox Rabbanut, said to the people, you have to have a funeral and a shiva. Then when they brought the bodies back, I did not know this, they said, you have to have a funeral and a shiva. And was taken aback. I told my girlfriend, whose kid lives in Israel, and she said, yeah, it's more money for the Rabbanut. Because, they're just insidious in every life cycle event. So for me, it's terrible. Yeah.
Vanessa, I was listening virtually.
Oh, good.
And I was glad they finally got the sound going.
Yes.
In the beginning, there was no
Yes, it
sound.
was terrible.
But when she talked about kibbutz Be'erim, I think I told you my son was
Yes.
there. And boy, oh boy, what he saw and what he described to me
Right.
and to us was just horrific.
It's horrific. It's hideous. Okay. So,
Okay, I have a question.
yes.
You just said something, and I couldn't follow you, about funeral
Yeah.
and Shiva. Are you talking about the dead bodies?
Yes. Yes. And from the war.
Okay, so we repeat what you said, please. They bring them back?
So first of all, in Israel, everything is run by the Rabbanut. They run everything by halakha, Jewish law. So once Hamas said this soldier is dead, the Rabbanut said, have a funeral without a body and sit shiva. Then the body came back, they said, have a funeral, sit shiva.
Again?
Yeah.
Again.
Yes, again. Some people chose not to. Yeah,
Okay, so I recently.
louder.
Okay, I recently was with Yuri Freebrook, who was our guide, and when we went to Israel.
Uri Feinberg.
Yuri Feinberg, right. So Yuri said to me, he's been to 22 funerals, but only knew 3 of the people, or 2 of the people.
Yeah.
So he goes to support
Yeah.
those funerals, and, absolutely, and, I thought that was really interesting, that is a mission
Yeah.
that he has had, is just to go to funerals. Besides demonstrating.
Yes.
When my daughter was in Israel, when my daughter was in Israel volunteering in January, one of the things they needed there was a Filipino person who was killed in the war, and they were asking people to go to the Shiva. So my daughter went to the Shiva, not knowing anybody, with a friend, and it was a mitzvah.
Yeah. When if you're a soldier fighting there and you're from here, you're a lone soldier, a chayal boded, and they put out a call and there'll be thousands and thousands of people. Let's see. Sudra. All right, let's go back to Etgar Keret. So this is this book is a story of vignettes, and I think knowing the history of Israel helps as you're reading this. In between, this is from a reviewer. In between reading the stories woven in, I made many internet searches to try to glean additional background information. I found the most important essence of short stories is what they reveal about the elements of the experience that knows no borders. And, the first thing that I thought we could talk about, you could tell me what you think of the book and how you think we should read about this, but this was written probably 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And it's like it happened last week. The bombings, everything. And you see how people in Israel live with this just in a matter-of-fact daily manner. Thoughts?
So I looked up the history. Started with 2014, 15.
Louder.
What I found was what's exactly what's going on today, except it's more mine. I mean, it's not in full blown. This is what I found out. In 2015, so they were building unlawful settlements.
That's Israel.
Transfer of Israelis citizens to West Bank to fill these settlements. Palestinian
All right,
demonstrations.
I need to know where you got your information because that is not it's a biased reporting of what you have there.
But when we were in Israel, you already said some of the things you're saying were illegal, but they've been there for so long that now they're not going to do it.
Those are the settlements in the West Bank. Yeah.
2015, he just had come to power basically, and he was, a little bit before
He's been in power.
No, but he had the ability to say, and the U.S. was very upset about this. I mean, this is kind of the tensions are building. Not that he's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is what was going on. 2014 Israel-Gaza war, closure of the Gaza borders between Israel and Egypt. They couldn't leave the Gaza. Gaza economy was in shambles because of it. They couldn't export anything, and the only thing they got in was through humanitarian aid. And 70% of the people in Gaza were under humanitarian aid. Exactly what's happening today.
Yeah.
There were a lot of, there were a lot of, the numbers of people being killed was less, but it was still the same, the same thing.
They weren't using,
There were,
neither side was using missiles. Now both sides are.
Hamas they were using rockets, they said, and there are 258 Israelis had been killed from just their, going into Israel.
I see you, Lynn. I see you, Merle. I'll get you.
And in 2015, what you had in Tel Aviv, which is where he lives, there was a bus stabbing that was horrible. A Palestinian got on a bus and just stabbed everybody. Okay, there were several, and it happened several times. There was multiple people. It wasn't just one incident. There were the terrorist attacks were really, really high. There were 83 shootings of Israelis, citizens, just doing their thing. Okay. And in late 2015, there were 3 major Palestinian attacks on Israel. So, so this isn't really biased. It's like saying there's reason for all of this.
Okay.
Same thing. It's just
I have Lynn, Merle, and Sandy. Lynn.
When I was praying during the holidays, I asked God to help me not be so critical and to keep an open mind. And I'm listening to this discussion and I'm thinking, this is a short story class. If we're going to be political in here, I'm questioning the whole purpose of this class. I would like to talk about the universals in these. There are universals in these stories.
Agreed.
About human beings. So I don't want to get into, for me, I could be the only one thinking this because this is not I'm here to get away from all the political stuff. So I'd like to hear people's opinion about that. If people want to talk about history and the clashes and all of that, that's fine. It's not my thing.
Right.
But,
thank you, Lynn, for bringing us back on topic. And unfortunately, today we had to give some historical context, but I agree we need to get back to the story.
Thank you.
Okay. Merle. Wait.
You're on mute.
I unmuted you. Go.
Thank you. And this is a really lovely book because it's a memoir in very amusing satirical short stories, and from the birth of his child to the death of his father. And the first story is called Suddenly the Same Thing. And what he's describing is something that's a very emotional thing. His wife is in the hospital about to have their first child, but it's also the same day as a terrorist attack. So you have this very emotional experience enhanced in a negative way by a terrorist attack. But this is life in Israel. So I think he's giving you this wonderful combination of his own experience and also what it's like to be a citizen of Israel. So,
and not just a citizen of Israel, because someone came up to him in the hospital and said, "What do you?" I wanted to interview him.
That was
right, and that adds another dimension because he's a famous writer, and then they find out he didn't really experience the terrorist attack he got there before.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, really don't want to talk to you anymore about that.
Right.
So he's got a very unusual life. He's an Israeli, he's a writer, but he's also a man having a baby that day. And so it's a very nice story about all of those things on different levels. Yeah.
Right. Sandy, then Alice. Sandy, I'll unmute. There you go.
Yes, I just remember the first Intifada that our dear friends who were American immigrants to Israel, they went there in 49, made Aliyah. Their granddaughter was working with the IDF, and she was loading some young people onto a bus in Jerusalem, and a Palestinian got on the bus and blew up the whole bus of young people. She was killed. Not everybody was killed. but she was only 17 or 18 years old. Beautiful young woman.
Thank you for sharing that. Alice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I I've now read the first two stories, I think 3 times. You know, they're short. I just love his tone, the black humor, but I mean, it just drew me in to want to know more about his life, his son's life, his family life. And I just think he does such a good job of capturing real dialogue, and also the nurses. I mean, they're running around taking care of these people who were the victims of a terrorist attack. And I think he just captures what it would have been like in the hospital, and he and his wife get swept up into it, having their baby. So I think he's very, just in just a few pages, he tells us so much about his life and what it means to be an Israeli in Israel.
I like the black humor. I have Sue, Elaine, Lynn, Beverly, Abby, and Barbara. Suella, go.
Well, to me, I've only read the first.
Loud.
I've only read the first 2 stories, and I love them. And I too love his humor, and the way he describes things to me is so artistic. But the thing that got me more than anything in these first 2 stories, I think it was a tale of innocence, and what it's like, how lucky a newborn baby is to not have all the prejudices and all the fears and everything that we as adults have. And how wonderful it would be if we could all get back to that spot.
To not have the judgment.
Exactly. And that's what got me kind of emotionally into this.
Yeah. Elaine.
I think that we have to remember, we are in the United States. He's in Israel. We are, everyone is responsible for their environment or what they live through. I have changed somewhat of my personality and somewhat of what I think since my husband died, because my situation has totally changed. Okay, I think that we have to acknowledge that this is the way Israel lives. They live on almost two separate planets. They go on with their lives, but they have terrorists. And I don't think we, as voyagers, are reading a story, okay? And we cannot imagine living like that. So I think we have to keep it in perspective that this is a story. This is showing you something. And it is one person's opinion.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You go ahead. Barbara.
What I loved about this, first of all,
Be loud. Even I can't hear you.
what I loved about this was his voice. I am in the middle of writing a memoir myself.
Oh.
But his voice is fabulous. I mean, you have to decide, it's a balancing act. You have to decide who is going to be your audience and what your truth is. And I think his truth comes through so well. I especially loved his persnickety humor, imagining what his child could be thinking, having never being so naive and having no experiences. I mean, I remember when our first child was born and around 3 months, all of a sudden she was laughing and we were like, what is it that she finds funny? What exactly could get her mind? What's going on in there? And I love that part of it, and I loved his voice and the way he expresses it to his audience.
Yeah, agreed. Alice said black humor. Wait. Lynn and then Mary. Then Abby,
We have a ton of people.
I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you guys. Lynn, go.
What the draw for me is, how do people react when they are constantly in a state of high alert? And he pours humor in here because probably that's one of the ways in which you can deal with trauma.
What he's doing.
But the second sentence sets up the tone almost of this. The older nurse takes a piece and nods. What can you do? And she says, I also hate emergencies. Well, she's in an ER. I mean, what is she doing here? She's got to learn how to cope with that, but she's taking it, sort of, okay, I have no control over this. What am I going to do? But what I did notice is his emphasis on those who have become callous and petty. And once, particularly the cab driver who's worried about the wife throwing up on his new upholstery.
No, breaking her water.
But that is a concern.
You would think.
It is, and all cab drivers,
Yes.
It's their livelihood.
If you're in a state of life and death, that you would have a different perspective on somebody given birth or have some kind of compassion, but we don't have it there. And then the reporter, who seems to be exploitive and manipulative and only interested in the good, in the angle here. What's your angle? Oh, this would be good. You would be good for this story.
Right.
So
Right.
to me, human nature really appears in its lowest form and its highest form in this story. And I would imagine, I have a friend who is Israeli, and we talk all the time about what's going on. And it seems that you have to adopt some kind of mindset to handle this kind of environment that you're living in order to survive. So I will be interested in seeing what he has to say about that. But the idea of, I think this guy's an idealist. He's a dreamer. He said by the time he grows up, everything here in the Middle East will be settled. Peace will come. There won't be any more terrorist attacks. Right. I mean, as we see it, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but he seems to have a more optimistic view. Maybe it's because he's having a child, but
Right.
I'd like to see the difference.
Right.
He has to.
Right. All right. So I have Mary and then Beverly. So Mary, go.
Okay, so one of the things I like, we talked about is black humor.
Yeah.
Is his style. At the end of every story, he gives the summary of what he wants you to leave thinking about.
Yeah.
Every single one in this, I've read the whole book, to the last couple of sentences of a story. So if you're a little bit at loss, because he does go back and forth. He goes from happy-ish,
Right.
more optimistic,
Right.
to not so optimistic. And for example, when we talked about naivete, you're absolutely right. He's thrilled that his baby has naivete. And he says he's supposed to be naive, seeing as how he's a newborn. But even he doesn't buy it. And after a second's hesitation, a small hiccup, he goes back to crying. So he goes through this balancing act of trying to be optimistic and then kind of going into a dark humor, dark place, and then coming back again. So as I was reading the book, I went back and looked at every single chapter, and the last two or three sentences of every chapter is a summary of what he wants you to take away.
Good organizer. Okay, Beverly, then Ellen.
Yeah, well, in this first story, it's interesting because he inserts through the reporter the what do I want to say? The misogynist attitude about a woman's body.
Right.
Because he wants, if his wife had a baby, he wants her to have a cesarean like
Yeah.
that.
But that's his humor as well.
That's his humor, right?
But it's also a statement.
Yeah. Ellen and Abby.
Okay, I don't want to repeat. I love the humor.
Oh, and then Alice.
I started reading this when you first told us to get it, and I was in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep one night. So I started reading it again a couple days ago when I knew we were coming to class, and the humor just sang out to me. But
I have a question.
Yes.
In the chapter Big Baby that starts on 7, the very last one, my son, the self-hating Jew.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
circled it.
Thrown in.
And there is no summary at the end of the paragraph.
Right.
And I circled it, I think that's.
I don't know.
I can't hear what
Okay, 1 minute. They want to know on page 7, why he calls the baby could be maybe a self-hating Jew. I think that's just a category. And I think in America, we talk about it a lot more than they talk about it in Israel. It's, all of that. All right, Mary, I'll get back to you in 1 second. I have Evie and then Alice. Evie. Oh, wait.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I was kind of intrigued by, I kept forgetting the name of the book. I kept forgetting his name. And then I realized this morning as we were starting to chat that I think his name, Etgar, I think is challenge. If I'm not, am I correct or not correct?
You are correct.
Etgar is Hebrew for challenge?
It's Hebrew for challenge. We, at Azuri, we have these climbing things, and it's called Etgar, meaning challenge. And all the kids say, I love Edgar, I love Edgar. It's Etgar. So I happen to know that word. Yes, but you are correct.
The only reason that I know it is my grandson a few years ago went on this wonderful camping program cross country called Etgar, and I kept looking up what is it an acronym for and so on and so forth, and it wasn't until the end of the summer that I understood what the name meant. But I think in the few stories that we've been reading, I think we have a way of seeing things as a challenge or a problem in terms of how you address it. So I don't know, how he got that name, or what his siblings' names might have been, but I was just kind of intrigued by that, and I sort of like the names and how they come about.
I have never thought of that. I know what the word means, and I've never thought about it. So, Abby, thank you for that. And I'll have to dive more deeply into that before we come back. Alice.
Okay, a couple of comments. One, it goes to what Lynn said about, I think you said something about humor among, in war times and stuff like that. So I just read an article about Ukraine. They never had stand-up comedians, but now, since the war, there's stand-up comedians all over the country. But they're talking specifically about the war situation. But there was a picture in this article showing people in like a plaza outside of a shopping center. I thought, oh my God, they're so vulnerable, but they were listening to this stand-up comedian. I mean, it's like, I feel like it's a need for these people.
It isn't.
Yeah.
Second thing, what I think it was Ellen, you were saying about my son, the self-hating Jew. Well, it's the end of the chapter, and he talks about my son, the enlightened one, my son, the junkie, my son, the psychopath, my son, the self-hating Jew. I think this goes along with what other people said. I think he's trying to imagine what this little newborn baby, what is he going to turn out to be? And he could be any of those things or many other things. So I think he's just, like we all do when, I think somebody else said this, you look at your young child. Is he going to be an artist? Is he going to be a scientist? Is he going to be this? Is he going to be that? Her. So I think, it's just a way of getting across some of his ideas through him thinking about what is going to happen to this little baby.
You're here. Mary, then Lynn.
This whole thing about the whole thing about a self-hating Jew, I think he realizes sometimes his anxieties, his fears, his whatever. As a parent, they create something that can be negative. And his wife says to him, cutting in, instead of dreaming up hysterical accusations against your adorable son, maybe you could do something useful and change him. And he says, okay. I tell her, okay, I was just finishing up. The point is he realizes that he has to do something to protect his son and not have him grow up being a hating Jew, but to be something better than that. And I think he takes that very seriously. I think it's that balancing act of and he doesn't want to give baggage to his son of you're going to be a psychopath or you're going to fall apart because of this.
Right.
He's like, I have to be
Although,
responsible for you.
all of the studies show that children of Holocaust survivors have a lot of baggage.
I know, yes, they do.
So
You don't even need a study.
right. He must have a lot of baggage. And Shira Geffen, with this famous father, I can't even imagine what the dynamics are like in their household. And I think that, you know, being funny is our way of letting out. And there's been a lot of humor in Israel. But if you think back, after 9/11, you know, TV went dark for a long time. And then when Saturday Night Live finally came back, you know, it's interesting to see how we deal with comedy and how we deal with these, I think, Mary, you put it rightly, anxiety. Lynn, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Go. Elaine.
I want to piggyback on what Alice said. In philosophy, and I think it was Rousseau, talking about the way people come into the world, and this tabula rasa idea of we are born with a clean slate. And when we are born, we have, you know, our personality, temperament, not so much, but ideas, you know, are implanted in us by society. And this to me was the central part of the story. My son, the enlightened one, and he says, as someone who has read a lot of Buddhism and has listened to 2 or 3 lectures given by gurus and even once had diarrhea in India, I have to say that my baby son is the first enlightened person I've ever met. He truly lives in the present. He never bears a grudge, never fears the future. He's totally ego-free. He never tries to defend his honor or take credit. And he goes on in different places talking about, you know, the son. So we're born into this world, clean slate. So what happens? What happens to people? And how do you know, I'm not going to get political.
Grow up.
What happens to get a person like that? So the question is, these traits are taught. We are taught to maybe bear grudges or fear the future or whatever, and that it's a parent who has the responsibility, plus peer groups and all these other things. But parenting is such an important part of writing on that tablet, and I think that's why he starts the story the way he does, because and having a natural birth, that's very important. I mean, natural is as opposed to superficial, which we see in this story. That to me, that journalist was the worst in terms of being self-centered. Anyway, so I think that that's part of his agenda. I think these stories are meant to show lessons in how we develop as people and how we end up being terrorists or being good people or whatever. I want to say one thing too about Geffen. There's a Geffen in Hollywood who's a big producer.
Right.
Yeah, David.
I
David
wonder
Geffen.
if he's related at all to this Geffen.
I will look into.
It probably is. It's just too much of a coincidence.
Yeah,
I know.
and he's Jewish. The one in Hollywood is also Jewish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin's.
Elaine.
Okay, I think, again, getting back to my thoughts on Israel versus America. You go to a funeral and somebody stands up, they tell a funny story. I think the rabbi says, you know, there's a prayer that says we laugh and we cry, that kind of thing. And again, I think Israelis need to protect themselves. I mean, I walk out my front door and I don't think somebody's going to come and shoot me. I get on a bus and I don't worry about it. In Israel, it's probably the back of your mind all the time. And when you have a child, we all think the children are pure. And I agree with Lynn. You learn from your experiences. There was a song that Peter, Paul, and Mary sang, or it was Sesame Street about being green. Okay, And that was what, 30 years ago?
Barbara Streisand, teacher.
Probably 40 years ago.
Right, all right, 40 years ago. And it's true. We learn to dislike, we learn to distrust. And you cannot be this trustful child unless you live in a bubble all your life. And I think Israel is such black and white. We're sort of gray and beige.
Oh, I disagree with you. You see it in black and white.
Yes, yeah.
I don't. It's very gray,
Okay.
super gray. Joyce,
The song that resonates with me is the one from South Pacific.
Yeah.
You have to, that's what Harry
Yes,
say.
yes, yes.
You have to be taught.
this is a.
Yeah, you have to
be carefully taught.
Carefully taught.
And I keep coming back to
Yes.
this.
Right.
Yes, children are born with this blank slate and they
We
learn
ruin them.
from others.
Right.
And Barbara.
Hopefully not from their parents.
Yeah.
They hate.
This is a very niche group where you can mention a song from South Pacific and everyone, I can't do that in a lot of my groups. That's all I'm saying.
And Barbara Streisand would say, listen to your children or talk to your children.
Right.
Barbara Streisand.
Right, teach your children, that's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Teach your children.
That's how it's
Joyce, go ahead.
But I agree with you. I have more family in Israel than I do in the States. My grandson is in Israel right now doing his gap year. And as I made a comment to somebody else, I am not worried about the terrorists. I'm not worried about the bombs. I'm worried about the family fighting over who's getting him for Shabbat now. No, I'm
Very nice.
serious. I mean, he was
Very
with
nice.
one cousin for Rosh Hashanah, he was with other cousins for Yom Kippur. They're going to take very good care of him. But they live in a world of gray.
Yeah, for sure.
They are not binary by any stretch of the imagination. The whole country is very secular.
Right.
And they,
Except those who aren't.
well, yes, but, and they have learned to shut their minds. They have to
survive.
to survive. I mean, they are so used to going into a shelter and hearing the rockets and
Right.
it's just their means of survival.
Yeah, I agree. Sandy, then Merle. Sandy?
Yeah, when
Go ahead.
referring to what Alice said, that you've got to be carefully taught. That is so true. And I believe so wholeheartedly that there will never be peace between the Gazans and the Israelis or Hezbollah or anything until they change their whole educational system, because they're using textbooks that portray Jews as evil and devils. This is what they're taught from the time they're very young. You know that I am sympathetic to the Palestinians, especially in the West Bank, but their education system has to be totally changed or there will never be peace.
Merle.
I think something Lynn said before was really important, that there's something also universal about this story. It's not just that it's by an Israeli. He says he's got this little 10-pound person in front of him, and he said, like any other man on the planet. And what he sees is potential, possibilities, and surprises. And the funniest part, I thought, was where he said, put a 3-piece suit and a Rolex on him, stick it in his hand, and send him out into the world, and he'll negotiate to battle and close deals without even blinking. But he also goes through other possibilities. one was an enlightened person, one was an addict, one was a psychopath, and one was a self-hating Jew. So he sees there are possibilities, and it will be a surprise. No one knows what their child is going to turn out to be.
For sure.
And maybe when
Can't
they're
guarantee
Sure.
positive.
early
Yes,
20s,
negative.
you finally start seeing who this person is going to be. But I thought that was very important, that in addition to the Israeli point of view, he also has a universal point of view.
Absolutely.
Agreed. I haven't had time to listen to this, and I will email it, but just, let's see, 5 days ago, Etgar Keret did an interview on NPR. So, a look back on a year of war. And doing the math, I think his son was born in 2006, and that makes him 17 or 18. So that means he has one son who is about to go into the army. So I just can't even imagine. And, now more and more Israeli soldiers are dying. And so, it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. If he does another memoir, something like that.
Is this his only nonfiction?
It's his first one.
It was his first, but I wondered what he's written since.
Oh, Alice thought of the E-Trade commercials with the babies. Talked about, you are right. Those E-Trade commercials are hilarious. And look, we all know about it. Sometimes you don't know what they're advertising for, but that one's funny and we know what they're advertising for. Yes, Lynn.
I love I don't love, but I think on page 9, under psychopath, I can identify. When he says, that's a truly unnerving thing about my 2-week-old son. He doesn't have a drop of morality, not an ounce. Racism, inequality, insensitivity, globalization, he couldn't care less. Honestly, I mean, so it would be so interesting. I haven't read more of the stories, but how do we develop morality? I'd love for this group to talk about this.
You have to have experience first.
What experiences could you be going through to develop some of the moral stances that we are hearing over the airwaves? That's what I would be very curious to understand. I
think you brought up that, it says here, what we expect of a 2-month-old baby who only cares about milk and getting his diaper rash salved. Like, how old do you have to be to start those lessons? And, there's all different types of parenting. And my personal children are with my gentle parenting, gentle touches, you can't say no, and all of that stuff. I occasionally, you have to say no, they're going to kill each other. But you can't let a little infant like that cry. You have to change their diaper. So when do we?
Some people do, and then the children turn out. Some people do let their kids cry, and some people do have have diaper rashes, and then these kids become angry. Right. I mean, it's developmental from the time that you're born. It's how you treat your children.
Yeah.
To have
It's true. Yeah. Right.
One of my kids.
Merle.
Okay, so my grandchildren in Minnesota are 8 and 11. They both ran for student council in their respective schools, and both of them in their speeches said, what I want to bring to this school is tikkun olam. They said, I'm going to teach you these 2 words, tikkun olam, repairing the world. And they said, that is what my platform is as I come to this.
Oh my God.
And they both got on.
They both got elected.
Jewish schools? Do they?
How many?
There is a mix, but certainly not mostly Jewish.
Yeah. Wow.
They brought their Jewish identity. And my
good politicians.
Yeah. He said, I'm Jewish, but I don't keep kosher. So that's his identity. So I'm just saying that they start when they're young in elementary school. They're already learning something.
Right. although having, worked with kids, for a long time, there's a lot of anti-bullying stuff. And then the kids, would say, who here has been bullied? And to a one, especially the bully, would raise his hand. And so now I think they've, streamlined up, to be a stand-upper and to try to, to stand up, because when somebody bullies, it's not easy to stand up and say, stop it, and all of that. So, yeah. Lynn.
I'm going on in this sentence. This is really scary. He doesn't have a drop of morality, not an ounce. Blah, blah, blah. He has no interest in anything beyond his immediate drives and desires. So look at that. Someone who has no morality, but only his own desires and drives. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean, some people.
The point's there, we know.
Some people stay a baby all their life.
Yes.
He talks
Ellen
about
said some
the baby.
people stay a baby all their lives.
Yeah.
No names, no names, no
But
names.
he's talking about a
Can't
baby.
veer off now.
A baby doesn't have, I think you have to understand that he's talking about a baby, not even a child. And a baby doesn't have any, that's one of the advantages of being a baby.
And actually, that's.
But there's some people who never develop a moral.
That's true, but in this case, you have to take it as a baby is pure.
I'm not taking it as a baby. I'm saying what he is saying, that look at this baby. We can excuse this in a baby. That's the way a baby is. Some people are frozen in time. They, as adults, they've never gotten out of this baby stage.
Yeah.
They only care about their immediate drives and desires, and they are morally bereft.
Agreed, Barb and Mary.
Exactly what I was gonna say.
Barb, all right, Barb agrees with you. Mary.
Well, I think one of the things that maybe we should think about is, why do some people get caught in babyhood and never develop? That's really more important than the observation that some don't.
Yes.
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
Why, is it from trauma? Is it from neglect? Is it from bad parenting? Or is some of it's just innate in the person? I don't know, that they don't have that whatever psychological ability to control themselves.
Yeah.
To weigh their wants and needs versus the community or the people around them. Who knows? I don't know how you.
Joyce.
I think it goes back to parenting and what they were taught in their own house and what the moral compass was as they were growing up.
Yeah.
And I mean, a psychiatrist might say you can't always blame the parents forever, but in some cases you can.
Right, and genetics. Yeah. And so I have some things I need to talk about, and I apologize. Usually we can run over the hour, but today we can't. I forget what I was going to say. Well, damn it, people. I need to write everything down. First of all, thank you, everybody. Do you think we can do two of these little things at a time? Yes. Great. So I'm going to send that out.
What's the next class?
The next class, I'll get to that. I will send out the NPR link. People on Zoom, just click on it now and you'll be able to get to it. And the next class is, oh no.
Yeah.
Wait.
I think.
Well, it's the first and the third.
It's the first and the third, unless there's a tie. So it's November 6th.
Oh, November 6th, I won't be.
Woo! November 6th. Ellen, do you have an announcement?
Yes, I have an announcement, but you can go, I'll go last, but you don't have to.
You're last.
Yeah, but.
I'm good now.
You're all good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we thought we were all done with the postcards, but Rich found 250 and God forbid we should ever leave anything go to waste. So there are 10 packets. If anyone has the motivation to do it, see me. I'm going to put them at the front door. I figured there'd be somebody that would take one. I'm going to take several for friends. Thank you. Thank you. $6,250.
That's a 24.
Vanessa?
Yes.
I have a question. Were we supposed to read for today, the second story, the second one too about the airplane? Or no, or we were just?
No, I said that I thought I gotta look. In here, that it was suddenly the same thing, big baby, and then next week it'll be call and response, the way we wore.
Okay.
The way we wore. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Somebody asked about what's happening in Israel. I think that the trauma in Israel right now, it's got to be high, high, high. And oh my God, we're meeting the day after the election.
Yes.
We have to.
No politics.
We have to.
We have to get away from it.
Can't even talk about
Right.
that.
You know what, the truth is, we probably won't even know.
We won't know.
We won't know.
We have to stay our course. Lynn, you have to make sure if we meet the day after the election, you can't let us get off course next time.
I'm not promising a thing.
There won't be a result yet.
I don't think there will be. Anyway, it's hard to think that far in advance.
No, I just want to say with.
Izzy.
You talk about the trauma. They're sending children, I know, from Israel here.
Yeah.
2 at a time. My daughter had 2 and she's got another 2 coming this week.
Yeah.
Boys, the others were girls, because there's so much trauma and they need to switch. But it's so wonderful when they bring them here.
Yeah. There was hundreds of them at
There's more
camps,
coming.
URJ camps.
More coming.
Who are they, Lynn?
No,
Put
I
their
want
hand
to
up.
say where the dates are the 30th and the 6th. Is that what you said?
No,
No,
the
just
6th. It's the 6th. Yeah. The 1st and the 3rd.
Okay.
I'll send out all the dates with all the chapters.
Good, thank you.
Tomorrow is a holiday, maybe Friday. Or maybe, or I'll send out 2, whatever. Yeah.
Vanessa,
yes.
I'm not getting any of your emails about this at all.
Okay.
I read the first 2
Are you
years. The first 2.
I know.
And I.
But it was also in Macomb Home.
But I don't have that McCollum Home. That's literally.
You have your own email.
No, I have that. I do get McCollum, but it just listed the dates, but it didn't say exactly what.
I'm sending it to RMS.
That's right.
Okay.
No, I get McCollum,
You're on the other list.
Okay.
You don't get it in a couple days.
I will.
All right, thank you. Chag Sameach. There's lots going on. Read your bulletin. Read your emails. I know there's a. Bye-bye.